You're watching News at Prime. Let's bring you this now. Newly sworn in United States President Donald Trump has marked his return to the Oval Office with a slew of executive orders. The biggest casualties of his return to the world is, the World Health Organization and the Paris Accord, the Paris Climate Accord. Trump also vowing to change the gender laws in the country.
This week, I will also end the government policy of trying to socially engineer race and gender into every aspect of public and private life. We will forge a society that is colorblind and merit-based. As of today, it will henceforth be the official policy of the United States government that there are only two genders, male and female.
Well, let's stay with that and let's speak now to Outright International Executive Director Maria Sjödin, who joins us from New York this evening. Maria, good evening to you. I suspect it is early morning your time. Let's get your reaction first to the executive orders in which Trump, the understanding is that from henceforth, America will now only recognize two genders, and that is male and female.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. The idea here that somehow a presidential order can erase people who are outside of a binary gender obviously is incorrect. People exist as they are, whether a presidential executive order recognizes them or not. And in addition, people outside of binary genders have existed in cultures around the world, including among indigenous Americans, for thousands of years. So the idea that categories of people can just be written out by an executive order, it's just not right. And not only is it factually incorrect, but the idea here is that, or the risk here is that this executive order will cause discrimination, harm, and even a risk of violence for a lot of people. And one of the things that's being considered here is not allowing people to have a passport that reflects their gender identity. And of course, everyone is entitled to freedom of movement, and everyone needs a passport in order to be able to travel internationally. And this is another thing that, as part of this, will simply make people's lives more difficult, strip them of rights that they already have, and could also pose danger if you come to a border and your identity documents do not match your gender expression.
Yeah. For his supporters, Maria, and I'm looking back now to the election campaign, particularly as the dates led to November 5, and the messaging by Trump in part would say, take men out of women's sports. And so for his supporters, they are likely to say he is merely making good on his election promises. How much support do you think that this policy is likely to enjoy in America, if at all?
I mean, it's true that this is what some of them will say. I mean, the Trump side of the campaign spent over $200 million American dollars on anti-trans advertising leading up to the election. So it's clear that it was perceived as something that could help win the campaign. I think there's a lot of misunderstandings around these issues where people's awareness isn't yet at the level where it needs to be. But it is a fact that actually, there have been, I think it's several surveys over the last few years that have indicated that, especially among younger generations, there are a lot of people who themselves even identify outside of the binary gender system.
Yeah.
So I think this will be a very mixed reception. Some people, want to resist change or want to resist learning new things. And other people will feel their lives being actually threatened by this. And I think that goes especially for younger generations.
Yeah. America is quite different to a lot of countries, Maria. It's composed of many states. Do you get a sense that this particular piece of legislation is going to be welcomed by all states, or are some going to be resistant to it?
Absolutely. I mean, there is already quite a spread in where states are. There are a number of states that have enacted anti-trans legislation or are, proposing such legislation. And I've even heard of people starting to move away from those states to other states to ensure that they and their families can live their lives according to the way that they need to be themselves. So I think there is definitely a big difference between how this is received in different states. But that said, people should be able to live wherever and be who they are, and no executive order should be able to take that away from people.
How big a fight is this likely to be for organizations such as yourselves? Are you going to challenge it? And if so, might it go all the way to the Supreme Court, do you think?
I'm sure this will be challenged in multiple ways, including through the legal system. And yes, I do think that there is quite a high risk or chance that this will go all the way to the Supreme Court. But from Outright International, we also look at this from the global perspective, where it's not just about, what is the law in the United States. This is also about the message that it sends to other countries about the importance, or in this case, the importance of not recognizing people for who they are. And this is where we think it's very important for global solidarity to show its face here as well. Because, like I said, people whose gender is outside of the binary system have existed everywhere around the world in so many places and have been recognized, for thousands of years. And I think that is an important message against this simplification that claims that there are only two sexes, which, it's just not real.
Yeah. For the ordinary person on the street, Maria, I'd like to end the conversation on that note. There was a time in the world where people who identified as gay would not come out. And eventually, when they did come out, it would be a huge relief for them, because for the first time, they can express exactly who they are. Do you think that this takes us back to that era? How do you think people are going to cope with this moving forward?
Yeah, I think definitely there will be people who will be unable to come out, who can't take the risk of losing their jobs, their livelihoods over this. I have to say, Outright is celebrating our 35th anniversary this year, and I have to say, I think this is a serious setback, but it's going to be temporary, because I don't believe in the long run it's possible to deny people to be who they are. And so while some may currently claim that there are only two genders, it's just not right. And there are many of us who live our lives on a daily basis in contradiction with that. And it's just not possible to push everyone back in their closets and denying people their right to live their life as they need to and as they are.
Maria Sjödin, thank you very much for your time and insights on this. Outright International Executive Director, talking to us from New York.